Welcome to tonight's Environment and Planning Committee meeting. I'll declare the meeting open at 7 p.m. Acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the Aboriginal people of the Eora Nation who are the traditional custodians of our lands, waters and sky in the George River area. Pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who live, work and meet on these lands. We have no apologies tonight and no request to attend via audio visual link. Notice of live streaming of council meeting. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded for minute taking purposes and is also being broadcast live to the public on council's website in accordance with section 5 of council's code of meeting practice. The recording will be made available on council's website. Code of meeting practice. The order of business is shown in the agenda, which has been made available. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is open. Doors to the meeting room are to be left open unless the meeting moves into a closed confidential session, according to section 14 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Only if the meeting moves into a closed confidential session will the public broadcasting of the meeting be suspended. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits the electronic recording of meetings without the express permission of council. Mobile phones must be turned to silent during the meeting. Disclosure of interest. We have one disclosure of interest from Councillor Lansbury on item number ENV 00925. Reason one of the candidates is known to her through local government and it's a non-pecuniary interest. Any other councillor, any interest to declare? Okay, no other interest. Thank you. And next item is public forum. There are no speakers registered for tonight's meeting. Confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. ENV 00725. Confirmation of minutes of the Environment and Planning Committee meeting held on 10th of February 2025. Can I call for a move and seconder, please? Councillor Lansbury. Then Councillor Allison. Thank you. And can we go to a vote, please?
Your vote, please, Madam Mayor.
For.
Mr. Chair.
For.
Councillor Allison.
For.
Councillor Arthur.
For.
Councillor Jamieson.
For.
Councillor Lansbury.
For.
6 votes for, unanimous.
Declare motion carried. Thank you. Next is committee reports, and the first item is ENV 00825 Draft Jubilee Stadium Precinct Master Plan and Plan of Management for exhibition. Can I call for a move and a seconder on that report, please? Councillor Allison, Councillor Bork.
Mr. Chair, I would like to move it with an amendment if whoever was the mover and second, if the mover accepts that. And I've provided that amendment to the staff, which is up on the screen. And I'm happy to read that out. And then if the mover accepts that, then we can go on. So it's just adding a part 1 and 2 to item A. That Council endorse the draft Jubilee Stadium Precinct Master Plan and Plan of Management for public exhibition for a period of no less than 28 days and allow submissions to be received after 42 days in accordance with Section 38 of the Local Government Act. And so what's highlighted in yellow is the amendment, subject to the following amendments prior to exhibition. 1, removal of the long-term actions to investigate, design and build basement car park under Cogger Park with access from English Street. And 2, removal of additional basement parking from the long-term action reconfigured hill above the new indoor courts with amenities and additional basement parking. So if you...
Thanks, Mayor. Does Councillor Allison accept that amendment?
Certainly do.
Okay, I'll now ask for support from the staff to give us a summary of that report, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, councillors. This report seeks Council's endorsement of the draft Jubilee Stadium Precinct Master Plan and Plan of Management for the purposes of public exhibition. The Jubilee Stadium Precinct comprises the area between the Princess Highway, Jubilee Avenue, Park Street and English Street in Carlton. and consists of council-owned community land and a Crown Reserve. Plan of Management is a requirement under the Crown Land Management Act 2016 and Local Government Act 1993. It is a legal document that guides how community land will be used, improved upon and managed into the future. The Plan of Management will supersede the existing Kogarah Park Plan of Management, which was adopted by the former Kogarah Council in 2005. This former or current Plan of Management only includes 49 English Street and the playground at 249 Princess Highway and categorises the land as general community use. For this new draft Plan of Management, we propose to apply this categorisation of general community use to the entire precinct, and this will enable the greatest flexibility in terms of the uses and activities which are allowed within the precinct. The master plan supports the Plan of Management and provides the overarching vision and strategic direction for the future development of the precinct. And the draft plans have been prepared by consultants GHD Design, informed by preliminary community feedback and engagement in July and June of 2024, last year. So subject to Council's endorsement, the draft Plan of Management will be referred to Crown Land for landowners' consent, and this must be obtained prior to Council being able to exhibit the draft plans. And this review process by Crown Lands can take several months, so we expect that public exhibition won't occur until later on this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Porter. Are there any questions or comments from the councillors, please? Councillor Jamieson.
I just have some questions, but I guess they're more broader picture. Just in regards to with planting example, so we've discussed Donnelly Park Plan of Management. They had specific places to put trees, but in the Jubilee one, it's more generic. Is there a reason, or how does it work with where you put trees and stuff like that?
So in the draft master plan, is that what you're referring to? Where
Yes, in comparison, I guess, to Donnelly Park, which is very specific of where the trees.
So it does identify a specific location in the draft master plan. It says the western edge of Kogarah Park, and that's in item 10 of the short-term priority list. So it's specific to that location.
So you do actually have specific, and that's the only place where trees can go.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, we can do planting elsewhere. We've just outlined where there is a need for more trees to be planted, but it doesn't stop trees being planted elsewhere as part of any development scenario or any upgrade to precinct.
And just a couple more questions. So again, do we have a target for parks, or is a certain, for canopy, with tree canopy?
No, this is a different reserve to Donnelly Park. Donnelly Park is on the water. It's mainly a passive reserve. This reserve is, and that is, Donnelly Park is categorised as parkland and bushland, while this particular reserve is categorised as community use, general community use. So it has, whilst tree planting is in all the plans of management, and specifically in this plan of management, we're targeting an area. It can't be compared to Donnelly Park because it's got a different category under the Local Government Act. If you want to compare Donnelly Park to another park along the water, then that would, that would make more sense. But in this respect, you're trying to compare a park to a general community use. However, in any case, planting is required under the plan of management, and as Ms. Porter said, we have targeted a particular area that does need more tree planting.
And then once it's done, who implements and monitors, like for example, canopy or tree planting?
Once the plan of management and master plan is adopted by council, then it's handed over to our assets and infrastructure section.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I've got a
You
couple of questions, and then if I can make some comments after that. So just wondering if the manager could just make a comment in regards to the location of the proposed exercise equipment. Just had some concern that it was potentially, too close to the cenotaph and could inhibit on the Anzac Day services there. So just wondered if other areas had been considered and why that area was selected.
So this location was chosen due to a number of reasons. Firstly, it links in with the loop path that goes in around the entire precinct. Other sites that could have been chosen have already been selected for other uses. For example, where the playground is, it was thought that separating those two uses would spread the use across the precinct and allow different activation, and also address passive surveillance issues in this area, because it's generally quite underutilised outside of Anzac Day services. And it also connects to the Legends Walk, which we've heard from stakeholders. There are a few safety and security issues along that footpath, and so providing a more active use close to that would enable more passive surveillance and monitoring. Yeah, they're the main reasons.
Okay. I have just a couple other questions. Does community services facilities, which is part of the description for the future community building, does that description enable Culborough Community Services, who currently are the tenants at number 49 English Street, does that enable them to be potentially be accommodated at the future community building that's proposed? I think it's number 14 or something on the plan.
Yes, so that was taken into consideration. So subject to future lease agreements, that building would be suitable for a wide variety of community uses, such as what Culborough Community Services already provide.
Okay. And just further on the community building, I know that one of the, areas that is highlighted as lacking at the stadium currently is the lack of a gym for the elite sports teams to use. So does the description of indoor recreational facilities, which is associated with the future community building, does that enable a possible gym in the future if that was so desired?
Yes, it would, subject to a development application. Indoor recreation facilities are permitted in the entire RE1 public recreation zone, so they could occur anywhere on the site.
Okay. And just lastly, the Master Plan Action 10, which is to relocate the service driveway to Park Street and optimise the stadium car park for outdoor broadcast trucks. Just had concern about the loss of all-day parking that might potentially occur on Park Street as a result. If you could just address that as well.
So the intention behind relocating that driveway access is to mitigate against pedestrian safety concerns at Gate A, and making that Gate A entry more of a welcoming and focal point for entry into the precinct. It is acknowledged that it would result in a loss of car parking spaces to widen that access point to enable B-double vehicles to reverse in. However, the broader benefits of improving this part of the precinct were deemed to outweigh that at this stage, but it will be subject to a further detailed design.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions, but if anyone, I have some comments. If anyone else has questions, I'm happy to wait.
I didn't actually have a question, Madam Mayor. I did have some comments to make on it. So did you? I'll firstly just sort of in regards to the amendment that has been put forward tonight, I do support that. I have had, and I don't think it'll surprise anyone in this room, a lot of reservations about stage 3 of the project. I also have real concerns about the suggestion of changing it from an oval to a rectangle. I'm yet to be convinced that that would increase seating capacity and it wouldn't decrease seating capacity. However, I'm also mindful of the fact that this is to endorse this for public exhibition. It's not to actually adopt it in its current form. I also share the concerns that the Mayor has raised about the gym equipment located in that particular spot. I think it's right across the road from residents, so I would hate to think that that would become a port of call for fitness groups. at 6 a.m. Just from past experience, I know that that can be really problematic for nearby residents. To my mind, it would be better located over on the other side, more towards the Princess Highway end, behind Cogger Community Services or something like that. It sort of would tie in with Cogger Park. Those are all details that could be addressed more recent, once it's been out on exhibition. And, if a whole bunch of submissions come in support of a rectangular field, well, then I guess I have to take that back. I doubt that they will, though. I think a lot of the traditional users of this particular facility are die-hard football fans that only want to see their game day experience enhanced. They're not too fussed about a lot of the other bells and whistles, which is great, but I know you can't appeal to everybody. I've also got reservations dating back to previous iterations of draft master plans that offer everything for everybody, which can't be done. It's a finite space that we don't want to try and cram too much in to, and therefore just sort of ruin the uniqueness of Jubilee Oval in, we're really fortunate to have such an asset. We're very fortunate that the former member for Cogger lobbied so hard for funding, along with the former Prime Minister, John Howard, and who was it? There was somebody else. Maybe it was Premier Yammer. There's a lot of lobbying went in to get that $40-odd million upgrade over the years, and it's a little bit tired. I would like to see a little bit more emphasis on game day experience. There has been some of that included in this particular draft master plan. I think that's good. It's a huge step forward, but I just would be cautious about trying to put too many things in one place. Obviously, we need to try and include other facilities like basketball courts and things like that, but I'm not quite sure Under the Hill is the right location for that. I'm very much against the option of underground parking, not only because of how cost prohibitive it would be, but I just sort of think it would probably interfere with the site anyway. The cost is ridiculous. I think we'd be talking about a couple of $100 million to redevelop it to be able to cater for 700 or 800 car spaces. But all in all, I think it's a step forward that we're actually at this point. It's ever since I've been on Georges River, we've been discussing it. So that's going back 8-9 years. So this is a good step forward with the amendment. As I said, I would really prefer to remove stage 3 in its entirety, but I respect that we've removed a couple of the things that I consider especially problematic, and the reconfiguration into that particular design here as a rectangle may be supported by the majority. I don't know. I'm yet to be convinced by that, but I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could just speak to the amendment. So I've obviously, out of the stage 3 actions, have proposed to remove underground parking under Cogger Park as a potential option, and as well as under additional basement parking under any reconfigured hill. My reasons for that is that we already know through other actions that we're taking at council about the intensity of traffic around this location as it is. I don't think we should be creating underground parking there to create further intensification of the traffic at this location. I would also be concerned that, as much as you can build a park back over an underground car park, that it would result in the loss of some of the heritage trees that are on that the boundary of that park and the like. So I just don't support underground parking, and I note the comments in the report. I think in item 36 says one of the 6 master plan urban design principles is to improve pedestrian access and connectivity with a focus on sustainable transport options, including active transport and public transport, rather than multi-storey or basement car parks. So I think that statement speaks for itself. This stadium is located very close to Carlton Station. It's a walk down the hill. So it's not a difficult walk, and I think if you look at Moore Park and places like that, they've put in all the light rail. It's very much about getting people off driving to these precincts to go to games and get them onto the transport. And so I think that Cogger Park is well connected by bus and train, and I don't support the underground basement parking. And note that in the future community building, it does propose basement parking there for staff, and I support that because obviously you'd be losing the parking for the staff at the Cobra Community Services, but not on the broader scale that I think is proposed in stage 3.
Thanks, Mayor Book. Any other councillors have any questions or comments? Okay, the only comment I make on this is that we're getting additional tree planting there, which is great. I think Councillor Allison would probably agree with that. And I've discussed with Ms. Mudd a bit earlier about the timing of it, and it's kind of in abeyance. It depends on the Assets and Infrastructure Committee sort of workload and operational needs, but she did suggest we might be able to bring it forward by notice of motion, so that when the master plan and plan management is finalised, we can maybe get down there and with the community and make some sort of event there if that's permissible. Okay. In that case, I'll put this to a vote.
Madam Mayor,
For.
Mr Chair,
For.
Councillor Allison.
For.
Councillor Arthur.
For.
Councillor Jamieson.
For.
Councillor Lansbury.
For.
6 votes for, unanimous.
Declare that motion carried. The next item is ENV 00925, appointment of community representatives to the Georges River Local Planning Panel. Can I call for a mover and seconder for the report, please? Councillor Allison. Councillor Lansbury, thanks. And before we move to any discussion, I'll ask Ms. Alliance, who's the Manager of Development Building, from the staff to give us a summary. I will say though, if there's any questions on the confidential attachment, we will need to move to confidential. So we'll go ahead with the resume. That's all right.
Thank you. Okay, so generally with this report, it is putting up a recommendation for 4 preferred community representatives. The reason the report comes to you at this stage is because at the moment we have 3. And we nearly lost one for personal reasons. They decided that they were possibly going to be leaving the panel. That was going to bring us to 2. So last year I decided before that happens to give them an opportunity to make a decision based on their personal circumstances, that I put the report up to council. Since then they've changed around things that they wanted to do, and they've remained, so we still have 3, but the actual minister under the directions that was changed on the 26th of May last year, and it actually specifies under clause 2.1 that we need to establish a pool of 4, so we were already 1 deficient. This report puts up the recommendation for 4 more, so that takes it to 7. The reason I've done that is because recruiting for 4 all at once is much easier than coming back in dribs and drabs, firstly, but secondly, it also means that we are in a safe space until 2031. So if we can do that, it means that we may not need to come back. Those 3 candidates that are already in the recruitment in the pool of community representatives all have different finish dates. So once they all finish, we'll be settling with the 4 that we have until 2031, fingers crossed, and you won't need to see a report about this kind of thing until then. That's the intent. So without going into the detail, that's what the report is recommending.
I just have a question. So the 3 that are on there now, and we're adding 4 more, will you be calling on all 7 now?
Absolutely.
In the rotation?
Yes.
So they'll all be taken to the 3 will be doing less.
Yes,
Finance.
that's right. Yeah. So what we've done is we've organised the calendar up to a certain point, knowing that this report was going to go ahead. By the time we do all of the recruitment parts that we need to do and get them on board, I think that might be about mid-year by the time we do all the requirements. And by that stage, they will all start to get a go, I guess. So there'll be 7. There's around about 12 meetings a year. So on that rotational basis, everyone will have gone through at least one round. Fingers crossed by the end of the year by us using the new recruits. Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments from the councillors? Okay, no questions or comments. In that case, I'll put the motion.
Madam Mayor?
For.
Mr Chair?
For.
Councillor Allison?
For.
Councillor Arthur?
For.
Councillor Jamieson?
For.
Councillor Lansbury?
For.
6 votes for, unanimous.
Thanks. Okay, that motion carried. The last item is ENV 01025, member to Sydney Ethane MSC pipeline hazard analysis. Can I call for mover and seconder? Yeah, please, Councillor Lansbury and Councillor Allison. And before we go to any discussion, I'll ask Ms. Fawcett from the staff to give us a summary.
Thank you. Good evening. This report is for councils to note the Moomba to Sydney Ethane Pipeline Hazardous Analysis Report. In 2023, council appointed Ariscal to prepare a report for the Moomba to Sydney Ethane Pipeline to determine the potential population intensification of land adjacent to the pipeline. The pipeline runs along the northern part of the LGA, along the T8 Airport South train line, and the report includes the hazard analysis for Riverwood, Beverly Hills, Kingsgrove and Narwee. The report found that it will be feasible to increase the population by up to 500% in certain areas without exceeding the established risk criteria. However, in some areas, they are deemed unsuitable for such intensification due to high risk of specific land use categories such as hospitals and schools. The next steps would be to implement the recommendations, which will be to prepare a planning proposal to add the affected properties to the activity hazard risk map in the Georges River LEP, and to add a notation to the 10.75 certificates so that future property owners will be aware of the risk and limitations on development. Council will receive a further report when the draft planning proposal is prepared. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Fawcett. Are there any questions or comments from the councillors, please? Councillor Lansbury.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I would just like to say that I do support the recommendation. I think I'm pleased that we're actually at this point of preparing the planning proposal now. Obviously, a lot more information has come to light since we were first encouraged to support the first version of the Beverly Hills Master Plan. And one of those things that comes to mind is that old saying of shutting the door. The stable door after the horse is bolted. I think it would have been a huge mistake for us to endorse that planning, the original master plan at that time for a number of reasons, but particularly as this report is before us now, it was something that we really needed far more information on, and it appears that we've now got that. It will obviously impact the number of, well, the range of uplift and dwellings, all that sort of thing that will relate to the master plan, but we have to take whatever information has come to light from this study and the previous study has to be considered with everything that we do in a development sense in that part of the world. So I'm pleased we're actually at this point, and I look forward to seeing where we land with it.
Any other councillors with questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the council officers know the answer to this question, but do we know how many properties are affected by Part C that will have the future section 10.75 certificates on their properties? Do we know approximately how many?
Not at this stage, but we could take it on notice. Obviously, when we put that attribute into each of those lots, so that we can provide those 10.7 certificates when they're requested, we would know that number. But if it's not in the report, we'd have to take it on notice.
Okay, and a follow-up question: how do we have an obligation? First of all, do we have an obligation, and do we plan to communicate to these residents that this is now going to be placed onto this new requirement is placed onto their properties? Do we have an obligation to notify those owners?
In terms of the planning proposal, we definitely do. So as per any other planning proposal, there'll be a public exhibition process. Noting it'll come to council first before we put it
Would
on
they be
exhibition.
individually notified? I guess a lot of people don't understand the planning proposal process.
Yep.
They probably don't even understand what these certificates mean until they wanted to develop their property or sell it. So I'm just trying to anticipate, do we have a role in communicating that to them, or do they just wait until they find out when they're going to try and sell it and they get told that there's a certificate on there? Like, I'm just wondering what's the normal process.
Yeah, you're right. It's a really good question. And yeah, the 10.7s isn't the way to communicate to the community. That's just when you buy or sell a property typically. Through that planning proposal process, that notification period, that exhibition process will be really vital in making sure the community is really aware of this change. Noting at this stage, that planning proposal will simply create a map that identifies these lots. It doesn't say you can never develop, it just sort of triggers a referral process through the development application process. However, realistically, it will prohibit a lot of development given the risk, depending on where you sit in the complicated analysis report. But I guess back to your question, in terms of the planning proposal, yeah, we're going to need to specify quite clearly how that notification looks like. Like I said, you'll get that planning proposal before council, before we go out to the community, and we can specify what that consultation process looks like beyond what is already mandated through the community participation plan.
Okay, so we could potentially individually notify each of the affected homes of the planning proposal process.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, it's just a cost issue. That's the only thing. But yes, absolutely, we could send all that up to every single affected resident, and likely that would be our recommendation given the impact it has on those residents.
Thank you.
Any other councillors with questions or comments? Okay, in that case, I'll put the motion.
Madam Mayor,
4.
Mr Chair,
For.
Councillor Allison,
For.
Councillor Arthur,
For.
Councillor Jamieson,
4.
6 votes for, unanimous.
Okay, I'll declare that
Oh,
motion.
sorry. You're on the other page. Sorry. 4. 6 votes for, unanimous.
Thanks. Okay, this is the last item. So there being no other business on the agenda, I'll declare this meeting closed at 7:32 p.m. Thank you.